With a studio on.
Hello, Internet. I'm Evan Dashevsky, features editor with PCMag.com. Welcome to The Convo. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the space and the universe, as you might be able to tell. Okay, now when it comes to topics like science and the universe, there are few people better than today's guest at explaining complex scientific concepts so that even dummies like me and Social Pete can understand them. Okay, so today's guest really shouldn't need an introduction, but he's going to get one anyway.
Social Pete's right there? That's
Yeah. We can say whatever we want to him, and he has to take it.
Okay.
Okay. Neil deGrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist, the director of the Hayden Planetarium here in New York, host of the series Cosmos, as well as the podcast and TV show Star Talk, and he's one of the co-authors of the new book, Welcome to the Universe. Dr. Tyson, it is my honor to welcome you to the Convo.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You got the book right here and everything. Yeah, okay. Got a little audience back there. Yeah. All right.
Okay, now for those of you at home, the show is called The Convo, not The Dialogue. So if you have any questions about science, the universe, or what Bill Nye is really like, ask them in the comments, and Social Pete will read them out throughout the show, so make them good. Okay, so your new book is called Welcome to the Universe. It's
Welcome.
Welcome to the Universe. Your new book is called...
Got to put a way to pronounce it on this, Just
I'm going to point to you. You say it. The new book is called...
Welcome to the Universe.
Okay, it's based on a class you taught at Princeton. So what is the origin or the big bang of this book?
So I have two co-authors, J. Richard Gott III and Michael Strauss. And the three of us taught this class, and we took you from Earth to the outer reaches of the universe and back. And in particular, Rich Gott he's an expert on relativity and Einstein's equations, and this book, which is heavy. There's like very little air in the paper stock. So many books today, you'll get an introduction to a field, and it could be a mile wide, but still really only an inch deep. And what we decided here is to make that same mile wide book, but also make it a mile deep. So wherever you are in the book, you can go deep and learn not only what it is we know to be true in the universe, but how we arrived at that knowledge as well. And so, dare I say, we've got math in this.
A little math.
No, there are places where, we need an equation here to show you how we got this number. You could skim over it if you choose, or if you say, wait, how did they really figure that out? And it's all there.
Right.
Yeah.
I would actually read through this, and there wasn't too much math, though. If you're a curious dummy like myself, this is a great book. But like he said, it's heavy in content and heavy in actual book. Make sure if
it is a mile deep. We're not apologetic about that.
Sure. Right. So I don't get a lot of chances to talk to astrophysicists. So let's just go through some stuff. Let's talk about the many worlds theory. Now that's one of the zanier theories out there. Can you give maybe the elevator pitch for that theory? Are you a believer? Is there any experiment that could ever be done to verify that very weird theory?
There's the formal many worlds hypothesis to explain quantum physics.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about the multiverse?
Maybe I'm talking about the multiverse.
That's what I was thinking.
Everything that's possible happens.
Yeah, because that's right. Because the many worlds concept, but no one's mentioned that much lately. Yeah, but the multiverse, sure, that's front and center.
Yeah.
So if you look at sort of the tenets of relativity and quantum physics, where they both have to meet in a kind of shotgun marriage in the early universe, you have people such as string theorists who are top people working on this, and they're struggling, and I'm backseat to that, watching where that heads. But one of the outcomes of this exploration is the idea that our universe is not just alone and sitting by itself, but that it could be part of a multiverse. And in a multiverse, we are just one pocket expanding we can poke it, observe it, and we come up with all our laws of physics that apply in our observable universe. But there could be other universes. And in those other universes, according to these models, they would have a slightly different laws of physics in them, which would make them difficult to visit. If you step across the membrane, and then all the laws of physics that kept your molecules together in this universe might explode them apart in another universe. So I would be cautious. Don't be the first out of the box for that one. And so if the theories, the hypotheses hold that there could be an infinite universes embedded within this multiverse. And if that's the case, then every outcome is possible. There could be another universe where you and I are having this conversation, and I don't know, I'm Norwegian or something, but it's otherwise identical, right?
Does that mean that every movie that's ever happened has actually happened in theory in a universe somewhere?
No, well, no, okay. There's some movies that create their own universe within them, like the Lego movie. You know?
Right.
Okay, so is there a universe where Legos are alive? Maybe. I wouldn't. There are other universes where they make a movie where one Lego is slightly different in that movie. That's how you should think about it.
Sure.
Not that there were live Legos running around. Yeah. Okay.
Facebook, I see you have a question.
What's your confidence level that we're living in a simulation?
In a simulation, I think there's a path of reasoning that makes it pretty compelling. So, for example, as we get better programming our computers, and as computers get faster and smarter, and as we approach AI, what is to stop us from writing a computer game that itself has characters that control their own destiny with a kind of free will? Well, if we do that perfectly enough, with all the interactions of all the characters, who is to say that we are not those characters playing out our lives in this world that is itself the simulation of someone who programmed this universe in their parents' basement? Some acne teenager says, but way smarter than any of us, creates our universe. So here's where the reasoning becomes compelling. All right, if you create an accurate enough representation of life, and that life has what it calls free will, and that's all a simulation, what's to prevent that life from programming their computers to make a simulation within themselves? And then it's simulations all the way down. So in that world, there's one real universe, but all the other universes that are created are simulations. And now you ask, what are the chances we are in the one real universe rather than in one of the uncountable simulations within the simulations within the simulations?
Someone's been watching a lot of Westworld. Okay, so also I want to talk about rockets. Now, rockets go up, they explode every so often. It seems like it's not the best way to get to low orbit, or is it? I mean, it's 2016. Is there any better way to get up there?
No.
No.
Okay,
I'm gonna throw.
You got another question? Next question? No.
I'm gonna throw one idea. Out there.
Okay.
Okay. So we had.
By the way, they explode because they carry a lot of energy
Yeah.
in them, and we want to control that explosion in the form of a throttled rocket or the solid rockets, where you ignite them and they just go until they shut off. So. It's using chemical energy, the energy contained in molecules, and so it's kind of we've been doing that since Goddard, a century ago. It's a little embarrassing, if Goddard said, "Wow, in 100 years, I bet you'll have some other kind." Well, no, actually, we're doing the same damn thing you did with your liquid fuel rocket in the woods of Massachusetts. So it'd be nice to have matter antimatter drives, but what we really want is the warp drive. Just let's be honest with one another, the warp drive. Because even at the speed of light...
Elon Musk, you listening?
That's his next project. He's working on that. There's the Hyperloop, and next is the warp drive. I'm not allowed to tell you that, though. Okay, what makes the warp drive so important is we can now get to places in the solar system within a human lifetime. So 10 years here, 5 years there, 15 years there. The nearest stars, however, at those speeds would take 50 to 100,000 years. So that's incompatible with human physiology. All right. So that's just the nearest stars. Forget crossing the galaxy or visiting other galaxies. So what you really need is some new understanding of the fabric of space and time that allows you to take shortcuts through that fabric or to surf the warps in ways that you can travel many, many times faster than the speed of light. Without that, we're just kind of hopelessly imprisoned on this speck of dirt we call Earth.
Poetry. I also want to talk about your role as the ambassador of science to people like me. We're living in hyper-partisan times, perhaps you've noticed. If you go on some right-wing websites, they are very upset that on Cosmos you refer to Venus as having a runaway greenhouse effect. Now, let alone that I've heard Venus described that way since I was in junior high. I'm not a young man. And, oh yeah, it happens to be true. I don't think Carl Sagan ever really had to deal with this. What's happening with science in the political discussions of today?
Well, okay. So I've said this many times. I'll say it again. The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. All right. Now I should sharpen that. That's the catchphrase. But really, the methods and tools of science, when invoked, what role they serve is they find what is true, independent of who it is that's doing the finding. Okay, so if you get a result and I say, well, I don't know if that's true or not, in fact, I think you're wrong, I then design some experiment more clever than yours and I get an answer that agrees with it, oh my gosh. So, and then someone else from another country using a different power source, using a different bias, get the same result. We have found an emergent scientific truth, and when you find those, they are not later shown to be false. We can build on them, but when something is experimentally verified persistently, that is a new emergent truth. If you were in denial of that in a free country, sure, go ahead. I don't even have an issue with that. A free country means freedom of speech, freedom of thought, sure. But if now you are tasked, if you now have a position of power over others, then you're taking your belief system, which is not based in objective truths, and applying it to others who don't share your belief system. That is a recipe for disaster. It's the beginning of the end of an informed democracy. We have a democracy that protects our freedom of thought. And one way to do that is to make sure if you have thoughts that are not based in objective reality, you don't have the power to force them on others who don't agree with you.
So far. Facebook, I see you have a question.
Is there a universe where the multiverse doesn't exist?
So, if the multiverse is what spawns universes, then the answer is no. But here's a thought. If you just, it might be too early in the morning to have these kind of thoughts.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I like the fact that if you look at what we have come to understand about the universe, where you go back enough centuries, Earth was kind of unique in the. I'm painting pictures here.
Please.
So Earth was sort of unique and alone of its kind in the universe, and everyone imagined the whole universe revolved around us. And then we found, oh, Earth is just one of, 7 other planets. Just get over that number, okay? Pluto's gone. And so we're not, among planets, we're not unique. And then there are other planets. And then how about the sun? No, there's 100 billion other suns in our galaxy. How about the galaxy? No, there's 100 billion galaxies. Well, how about the universe? Well, we went for, 70 years thinking it's the only universe. The multiverse is philosophically natural, given this trajectory of learning, that the universe never makes anything in ones, perhaps not even itself. Well, if that's the case, then maybe the multiverse is one of multiple multiverses.
Sure.
Okay.
Now, earlier this year...
Can you pause a little longer than that on that thought?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Think about that, people.
Yeah. That the multiverse could be part of a metaverse itself, comprised of infinite multiverses, each having infinite universes.
But I wanted to have a question.
Okay, so now we can move on.
Yeah.
Just have to...
Okay, so earlier this year, you had a Twitter beef with an unnamed, fully grown adult celebrity about whether the Earth was actually round or not. I guess my question to you is the internet making us dumber?
So, first of all, normally I don't chase after people who
Sure.
say things like Earth is flat.
Yeah.
The reason why I did in that case is because this is B.O.B, the rapper, and
Hey, B.O.B.
Don't try to be nice to him in front of me. He had in his Twitter stream statements that the Earth is flat. Normally, I wouldn't pay attention, except in his Twitter stream, he claimed he was invoking laws of physics to calculate this. Well, if you're going to say that, then that called me out. I was happy in the corner, so I come out of my den, my cave, and I say, here are the laws of physics, and here's why you got it wrong. And I did that, but then that got noticed, and then I got pulled on to Larry Wilmore and did a mic drop. And so my only mic drop, do Google Tyson mic drop. go straight to my rebuttal to B.O.B. on Larry Wilmore. So I only did it because he was invoking science as his defender. And I didn't want his huge following to think that he was thinking rationally about this. And I ended this exchange by saying, again, I don't care what you believe, but because you have more than 2 million Twitter followers, there's a certain accountability to those who have that much influence over others. And that accountability, as an educator, I should think you should anchor those kinds of statements in objective realities and keep other thoughts that derive from your belief systems to yourself.
Sure. Facebook, you have a question.
What fictional show or movie do you think gets space science the most correct?
Well, I think my two favorite sci-fi movies, which had good science advisors, and they were also interesting movies too. There's some movies that maybe weren't as fun. Maybe they took their science more seriously than necessary to tell a really good story. But a Deep Impact from the 1990s, 96, 97, that portrayed an asteroid impact. That came out within a year of Armageddon.
Right, which is a terrible movie.
Armageddon, I mean, it was an entertaining movie, but Armageddon it violated more laws of physics per minute than any other movie ever made. Okay,
Sure.
So I had a lot of stars in it, and it was entertaining. Deep Impact was, I think, a better written movie in terms of how convincing the storylines were and the relationships, and also most of Earth's surface is water. If you're going to be an asteroid, you're probably going to hit water. Rather than in Armageddon, where pieces of the asteroid must have had GPS locators of Manhattan monuments, because one decapitated the Chrysler Building, one went into Grand Central Terminal, hit the clock in the middle of Grand Central Terminal. Don't get me started. Anyhow, another one is our Carl Sagan story, Contact.
Sure.
That one, that is surely how we would all behave with all the various factions and the fringe groups and the governments. That's surely how we would behave if, in fact, we made contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. So I thought that was an interesting scientific as well as psychological exploration
Sure.
on who and what we are.
Definitely. We just had an election. Did you hear something about that?
Yeah. General election. Yeah.
We have a new president-elect coming in. He hasn't been too detailed in anything.
Correct.
But as someone who pushes for science research and funding, what do you expect of the Trump administration?
Yeah, so I understand how people can think of me as one who's pushing an agenda or being an advocate. I don't think of myself that way. I'm not telling you to do anything. I will analyze your decision or your thoughts, and if you say, oh, we don't need science or whatever, I'll say, well, the history of civilization, if you care about your health, your wealth, and your security, the history of civilization argues differently. And then I give examples of it. And then I go home. I'm not going to keep beating you on the head. And as an educator, though, there are people who elected their representatives into positions of power. So you can go running after the elected representatives and beat them on the head, but they're representing a base of people who voted for them. So I have never felt comfortable talking to members of Congress who represent, unless they're my representative. I'm not comfortable doing that. In a democracy, I'm an educator. I will talk to your electorate and say, you're thinking what? Have you considered this other fact, that how this plugs in? Have you considered these causes and effects? And upon doing so, then I go home. If they value it, they'll vote that way. If they don't value it or don't care, that is their expression of a vote in a free society. So, right, in the next administration, the Trump administration, there's no details on anything. Forget science, there's just no detail. So it's hard to comment where that would go or what consequences it would have. So, but the day we do learn, I'd be happy to offer comments on something that's real.
Sure.
Yeah.
Facebook, I see you have a question.
I've got a viewer who's an engineering undergrad and they're looking to get into politics, specifically fighting for science and educational literacy. How do you think someone gets involved now in that front?
That's a great question. In fact, our government, as much as we all like to criticize it, does do some enlightening things structurally within itself. So the White House, the Congress, the executive branch all have fellows, science fellows. Last I checked, they had science fellows. So you can apply to become, if you have a particular scientific expertise or engineering expertise, you can apply, and there might be a stipend involved in it, but you go and spend a year in the White House or in the State Department or in the judicial branch, and you then serve the science needs of those branches as they arise. And you get to learn some politics, they get to learn a little bit of science, and both elements of this benefit. And it's not just, you're not just a drain on the system benefits as occasionally interns can be. In that case, there's a mutual benefit from it. In other cases, I think all campaigns, as they rise up, depending on what power level you're seeking, they will have power over money that is allocated to infrastructure, to science, to technology, to engineering, to art. And if you become an advisor to their campaign, generally, if they get elected, there's a position waiting for you because you were a friend to the campaign and they can trust you and your vision statement's aligned. So there are a lot of these ways to get in, but there's not just some job there waiting for you after 4 years. You got to go in there and find them, and you can definitely be tapped for that.
Speaking of education, let's talk about STEAM. Now that's when you have STEM, and then you add the A for the arts into it. I feel like I've heard different things coming from interviews with you where you're very pro arts education, but also you really are pushing, I'm going to say you are pushing that, the STEM part of it. We had Davin Newman from NASA in a few months ago, and she's pushing STEAMed. She had design towards the end of there. So what do you think is a proper mix in 2016 of arts, science in education?
So STEM, of course, became a very strong movement.
Right.
It had a great acronym, all right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. And just to remind people, if you didn't otherwise know, the value of those 4 fields is incalculable in its role in driving economies, the growth in an economy. So if everyone cares about money and economy and economic health, you cannot detach yourself from what role those 4 branches of the science literacy plays in this. Innovations in those fields will be the engines of tomorrow's economy, and to the extent that you do not know that or invest that way is to the detriment of your economic health going forward.
Sure.
It's just, okay. So now, the arts, okay, is always, they're like the whipping boy of budgets, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we ran out of money, no room for arts, no money for arts, or the music class, or this, and they're getting cut, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so it's a noble effort to say, let's put the A in the STEM so we can carry it along. But you have to be careful about that, because art, as we have come to, there's plenty of art that's completely self-driven. If you want to go top 40, okay, I don't know if that's the art we're talking about here. When my sense that I think we're talking about fine arts, yes, music, but just as a general appreciation for it and what role it can play in your creativity. That's how I see it happening. Because there's plenty of jobs and economic stability for people who are graphic artists, who are architects, or this sort of thing, and designers, set designers. So there are jobs out there. That's not the issue. We're talking about what's going to grow an economy. And so what I want is art to make a case for itself without claiming that it has to be in STEM for STEM to do what it has to do. History shows that's just simply false.
Can I offer just a little pushback? If we had Steve Jobs' ghost come back, he would say that there wouldn't be Apple without that liberal arts influence and design on creating these beautiful futuristic projects. You need both. You need STEM, but you also need that emotional human element too.
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. A beautiful machine is better than an ugly machine.
Sure.
No doubt about it, okay? And so whatever might be your motivations for creating that, if they're artistically driven, great. Another example of that is the flip phone, which, of course, debuted as a communicator in Star Trek, now in its 50th anniversary
Word up to
year.
Star Trek.
What's that?
Word up to Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so the flip phone comes out and say, hey, just like that. Now, of course, we're past that, and that was supposed to be the 23rd century communication. My point is that when you make a product, that's hugely influenced by design, hugely. Right. But the electromagnetic physics that's in the machine, the electronics, the quantum physics that's in that machine is not driven by art. That's all I'm telling you. I'm just being very candid about that.
Sure.
People don't want to hear that, but that's just, you can go to those labs and ask them, well, what are you thinking about art as you're designing this, as you invent the transistor? No, the answer is no. It's just no. Now, if you want to make something beautiful that we live with, you have industrial design. By all means, connect it there. But I'm telling you that the things that create tomorrow's economy are based on science, technology, engineering, and math that then enable the artists to do beautiful and wonderful things. Take a look at, in cinema, for example, the #1 movie of all time now is what?
Jurassic Park, right?
Avatar.
Avatar, yeah, that
Would
one.
you let him out a little more so he understands?
Yeah.
Okay? Avatar.
Yeah.
Okay? That is art. It is, there was a set designers, script writers, capital A art in every dimension. All right? That invented an entire new kind of cinematic industry. Was it because of its art? No, it was because of the technology on which those storytellings were based. Okay? Where you can create an entire world inside of the computer and be a cinematographer through the three-dimensional created space inside that. Technology enabled that. Then the artists can leapfrog that and take that wherever they want, but the technology was at the foundation. And that's why STEM is identified as such. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Now, with regard to art, I can tell you this. You can make a country based on STEM that has a thriving economy. You could do that. But if that country has no art, is it a country you would choose to live in?
No.
Of course not.
Yeah.
No educated person would give that answer, right? You'd say, yeah, I'll live. No, you're not. You like the art. You want the art. We visit European countries because of the art. We go to Florence to go to the museums and see the sculptures. We see the art and architecture, again, capital A, all art. So much of what comes to us from the past, from civilizations, is expressed through their art, and we know that and we value that, culturally, academically, intellectually. So to turn around and say, I don't have money for art, you can tell your representatives, you are removing us from the company of those civilizations who are best remembered because of how creative they were for their art. That should be reason enough. And if it's not, put someone else in office until it is. There's a lot of art in this society, more art than science. So in terms of how people are touched emotionally, and so you ought to be able to make that case on its own. But the moment you start saying we need art in order to grow tomorrow's economy, that under-analysis will fail.
Sure. Facebook, so you have a question.
Stephen Hawking said last week that the chances of some sort of cataclysmic disaster hitting Earth in the next 1,000, 10,000 years is like a certainty. Do you agree with that?
Well, it depends on what kind of a disaster, of course. Did the audience hear the question? You
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
hear the off-screen voice here. Yes, he's right there. There's a voice. No, he should talk and we go like this. Wait, where is that coming from? Whoa. We're always susceptible. And in fact, what scares me most is that 100 years ago, if you ask, what's your biggest concern for civilization? People would say, well, we might outstrip our food supply, or cholera, or tuberculosis. No one was even in a position to say, one of our biggest risks is that we could be taken out by an asteroid. Because the data set didn't even allow us to know yet this other way that we could all be rendered extinct. So that leaves me wondering, in 100 years, what will we discover that will pose yet another risk, something else we got to worry about. So an asteroid risk, that's real. Some kind of incurable virus, that's real. Total nuclear annihilation seems a little less likely post-Cold War than during Cold War, but nonetheless, nuclear weapons are out there. So yeah, or some unforeseen thing that we come up with in a century. Yes, my issue with Stephen Hawking's comment is often he and others, Elon Musk as well, are using that argument as to compel us to become a multi-planet species. And if that's the case, then some affliction on one planet, then the species still survives. Now you have to think of the practicality of that. It's, okay, 1 billion people are going to die over there, but we're safe on this planet. Goodbye, half the human race. I don't see how that plays well in headlines, okay? So, And what does it cost to terraform Mars and put 1 billion people there? I ask you, whatever that costs.
I don't know.
I ask in a philosophical. I ask.
Yeah.
I didn't mean you. I asked us all. Whatever it costs to terraform Venus and Mars and ship 1 billion people to each planet, whatever that costs, it's probably cheaper to figure out how to deflect an asteroid. It's probably cheaper to find a perfect serum that cures you from any possible virus that could arise. It's probably cheaper to explore sources of food so that we don't render ourselves as a starved, extinct species. I'm thinking that's probably easier to accomplish than terraforming 2 planets and shipping 1 billion people there, and then having the ethical dilemma that a third or a half of your species will be wiped out because you get to watch from another vantage point.
Actually, Cam, would you actually mind panning over to the side just to show the audience that we have here? I would just like to point out we've been doing these shows for about a year now. This is the very first time we've ever had a crowd gather. We've had some big names. You are a celebrity of science, of geekdom, and I mean that as a compliment. And I just want to point towards a study. This is from the CDC, which found that among American teens...
Center for Disease Control.
Center for Disease Control,
okay.
yes.
I don't know how that came in.
Among American teens, smoking, drinking, drug use, and sex are at all-time lows. Now, I think I can relate this directly to you. Okay, so... You have been there's been things happen in the last few decades where geeks have become cool. I think you actually say in the book that, for the first time, Bill Gates is the most powerful, richest man on earth. That's the first time that the smartest guy has ever been the richest person on earth, as opposed to the
patron saint of geeks.
Yeah. Right. So there's, but I think you've also kind of made geekdom cool, Silicon Valley, things like that. I don't know. Did you kill sex, drugs, and rock and roll?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's odd that sex is combined in that list with alcohol and drug abuse. It's odd because sex is required for the propagation of the species, and the others aren't.
But usually, to get sex, sometimes you need the alcohol and drugs.
That's what it is. Sorry. My bad. You're absolutely right. I think, as you might guess, I've given a fair amount of thought to this.
Okay.
I think the watershed moment for geeks was what was that?
There's a delayed response.
A delayed response
in
the back of house.
Yeah.
I think the watershed moment was the transition from the 1970s into the 1980s, where the computer wasn't simply the geeky thing that geeks used, or back then we called them nerds. The computer transitioned to becoming a household item, beginning in the early 1980s with the personal computer and the Macintosh. The moment the computer became something for everyone, who are you going to call if something goes wrong?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
You got it. Everyone has a geek friend who you used to give wedgies to. Now you have to be nice to them because they're the only ones who can fix your computer or tell you how to use it. And so there was a power shift in who mattered more, the football quarterback or the geek. And this transitioning into the 1980s then led to the films Revenge of the Nerds and Return of the sequel. That movie only exists if the nerds needed revenge in the first place. Today, that wouldn't play.
Right.
Because nerds don't need revenge because they're kind of already in charge. We're inventing and building the stuff that everybody uses and cares about. The smartphone and that next generation, put them 25 and under, 30 or under. They've grown up not only in the internet, but with the tools that empower them in society. And they know to a person that involves innovations in science and technology, design. And so I think that up-and-coming generation are not the ones writing these anti-science blogs. They're too close to the value of science and what it means to their lives. They're just not old enough yet to run things and to be senators and president and CEOs. So I have very high expectation that as that community rises up through the ranks, that the world will shift from those who fear and therefore reject science to those who not only care for it, but embrace it and want more of it. And that will catapult economies well into the future, as well as our security and our health as well.
Very cool. Facebook, final question.
Are we getting another season of Cosmos?
Whoa. Okay. So I've got top producers working on this now.
Okay.
No. I think we all want one, and it's a matter of can we get everybody together, get the band back together,
Sure.
and it was a lot. It was a huge creative collaboration with set designers, musicians, and writers. Ann Druyan, who co-wrote along with Steve Soder, not only this most recent Cosmos, but the first one that had Carl Sagan as well. So you put all this together. You want to make sure you have the right mixture and combination of people. But if we should know soon, I think.
Oh wow!
If anything is greenlit, but one shouldn't announce until something's greenlit because anything can happen.
Very cool. Okay, so on your on
That
your
was the last question?
from Facebook. No,
from
I
Facebook.
have a few more questions.
What do you got against Facebook?
I
We're on
love,
Facebook.
I love Facebook.
Thank you.
I
All
love
right.
you all. Okay. So on your podcast, you do something called the lightning round, where you answer questions really fast.
Yeah, on Cosmic Queries.
Cosmic
yeah.
Queries, yeah. Actually,
I
great
give sound
podcast.
bites.
Yeah. Big fan of it, by the way. Okay, so.
Star Talk, thank you for the plug.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Eugene
No,
Merman.
in fact,
Eugene Merman's great. I love it.
Yeah. Chuck Nice. So just if
Please.
we're in plug mode,
Let's plug.
a couple of months ago we came out with a Star Talk book.
Okay.
Which is like the opposite of this book. The Star Talk book it's like science as it manifests in all of pop culture. And so you open any page and it's, what would it be like to have sex in space? Okay, hey, I want to know that. Right?
Okay.
Like every page is like, when will the AI be our overlords? And what superhero talents can be manufactured with our tool methods and tools. So it's the soul of the show.
Okay.
But if you want to get deep into how and why any of this works, that's welcome to the universe. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first question is now, what is it like to have sex in space?
Wait, do you want to go into lightning round?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
lightning round.
like, what is it like to have sex in space? You piqued my interest.
Yeah, so you brush up on your laws of physics because any thrusting that goes on Earth involves a recoil where you get the careen into the back wall.
Sure.
So you need like Velcro and straps and other things that are readily available in certain neighborhoods, I've noticed. Yes. Okay.
For personal and business use, do you use Windows or Mac?
I've been a Mac person my whole life, ever since 1984.
Okay.
Right. And by the way, even when Mac as a computer was not powerful enough for me professionally, we used workstations. So it was all Unix from the very beginning. Silicon Graphics followed our Sun workstations, which followed IBM workstations. But when the Mac got Unix, then that basically we have probably higher than 90% penetration of Apple in my field of astrophysics. Yeah.
Android or iOS?
But this is PC.
Oh, yeah. This is PC Mag,
sorry.
and we got some. We got
Is that
some
the wrong
applause
answer?
there. No. We love it all.
Police
We love
are
it
going
all.
to come in?
Yeah.
I'm just saying. You asked me, I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I'm just telling you.
Android or iOS?
Oh, interesting. I like what I've begun to see in Android, but I've been iOS also my whole life. Here's an interesting little thing.
Your whole life?
Well, my whole life.
Yeah.
The whole life.
The whole mobile life.
Since 07.
Sure. Yeah.
07, yeah. So here's an interesting little ditty. If you have an Android system and if you have a carrier that has not done this, the Android system sends time to your cell phone based on the GPS satellites, but the time standard for the GPS satellites dates back to the 1980s when they were spec'd and they were put up.
Yeah.
That is before about 16 leap seconds have been added since then.
Right.
Some Android phones are not corrected for that 16-second, for those 16 leap seconds.
Yeah.
So if you have an iPhone, go up to several Androids, 1 and 4 I found.
Okay.
It depends on who your carrier is. Will be 16 seconds ahead.
Oh, weird.
And will have the wrong time.
Yeah.
Because they're not compensated.
Yeah,
They're taking the time raw
Yeah.
from the GPS satellites.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was a recent electronics purchase that you've been impressed by?
I'm not a first adopter.
Okay.
Yeah, so I let other people get the bugs out, and then I
Okay.
come in
That's smart.
a half
Yeah.
or full generation next.
Yeah.
I got a pretty powerful laser recently. I like lasers.
Like a laser pointer for a cat? Or
for
what do you
this is the only evidence that we have that we're smarter than cats because
Okay.
we don't chase laser points on
Sure,
a carpet,
sure.
but cats do. So that's one bit of evidence in case you're wondering. No, I like some. I'm a gadget guy.
Okay.
I need a new breathalyzer. I like carrying a breathalyzer with me. It's just
Why?
data. Just I'd like to know. If
Okay.
I had 2 glasses of wine, what does that show up as?
Sure.
It's data.
Yeah.
It's no different from wearing like the Fitbit that's always giving you
Right.
heart rate and this sort of thing. I like knowing what is the time and temperature and other things. I would like the day where your smartphone can analyze molecules in the air. So you can walk into a room and there'll be molecules of some deadly gas, but it can find it if your nose can't. And this will be kind of like the tricorder, but for life.
Right.
Yeah, and I foresee that day coming. That'd be cool. I'd get one of those too.
Definitely. Will the singularity occur in 2054?
You must be talking about the
Ray Kurzweil's.
Ray
Yeah.
Kurzweil's Singularity. I'm skeptical about the Singularity.
Okay.
I didn't get a good explanation of it until I spoke to him.
Yeah, I watched.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I had him on.
You want on a competitor, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was delighted to meet him.
Yeah.
He's a creative guy and deep thinker. So I'm not convinced of the merging of biology and electronics. I don't see that.
Meatware.
Is that what it's called?
That's what I call it.
Meatware.
Yeah.
So people say one day you'll just plug the USB into your neck. Well, they kind of did that in the movie Avatar.
Sure.
Because they had USB ponytails, right? And they take their ponytail and they connect them, and they would communicate en masse. So, because the reason why I say that is, why put a chip in your head to gain access to the internet when you can do it by pulling this out? I don't need this surgically attached to say, how many square miles is Colorado? All right. Oh, it's 1,000. Well, I can just do that here, minus the surgery.
Sure.
Okay. So I see AI as something that ultimately can serve as our tool, so that we can make better decisions. Right now, things like Siri and other voice-activated helpers are giving you data so that you can make a better decision. But true AI will analyze it and then compare its analysis with your analysis. And then maybe you'll adopt it, maybe not. Maybe you have a different intuition. But that's, I see AI in that role.
Okay.
And there are people who are afraid who might see AI in the reverse role, where it knows it makes better decisions than we ever can and decides we're no longer necessary, and that in fact we are a virus on Earth. You got that? Get that reference?
Yeah.
You're a virus. Right? That's a line out of The Matrix.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think our fear that AI will just want to kill us all is because we know they're right. We know they're going to look at the Earth and say, "You have not been good shepherds of this planet." Extinction. What is the dude?
The Smith.
No, the Daleks. Thank you.
Daleks, yeah.
The Daleks. Exterminate.
Yeah.
With the plunger on the nose, right? Yeah. Exterminate. And so the Daleks, I think they understand humans better than anyone.
Sure. On a depressing note, is there intelligent life out there?
Yeah. So the
Give it a
easy
percentage.
answer is hardly any sign of it here on Earth.
Right.
Okay. So I think the aliens may have visited us and decided not to hang out because there was no sign of intelligent life
Neil
on
is a
Earth.
fan of Ancient Aliens. Just want to get that on there. The TV show Ancient Aliens, about all the aliens who visited here in Egyptian times, who of course led to their civilization. You're a big fan.
You know what gets me? They all go to Egypt, and
Yeah.
and so why is it it's the Egyptian civilization that everyone wants to attribute to aliens? I think it's because when Europeans, who viewed themselves as the top of any tree, they entered the African continent and found a civilization greater than theirs, rather than say, "Oh, these people with dark skin were cleverer than we are," they said, "Oh, they must have been helped by aliens."
It's interesting.
What a huge compliment that actually is when you think about it.
Definitely.
Yeah. This is so beyond our mental capacity. Aliens must have helped you. Yeah.
Is Bigfoot out there?
It's very hard to hide a 200-pound mammal.
Okay.
Because they poop, they
Yeah.
To say if you wanted to say Littlefoot was out there and it was a microbe,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, that could easily evade our searches. But large, furry mammals that are presumably smelly and they poop, because everything poops, as the book tells us, I think it's very hard to hide such an animal. So I would go as far as to say that no, Bigfoot does not exist on Earth.
What is your favorite Kuiper Belt object?
Oh, Pluto, of course.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Still,
Oh, yeah.
You don't look at it as a planet.
No, me and Pluto go way back.
Yeah, yeah.
And we buried the hatchet, and it was the first and the most striking of the Kuiper Belt objects. And so we cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is your favorite nebula?
Favorite nebula? I have several. I'm gonna have to say the Horsehead Nebula.
Okay.
It's in the constellation Orion. No, that's the North American Nebula. Where's the horse? I forgot what the Horsehead Nebula is. It's the there's another nebula called the North American Nebula. It looks just like North America. Horsehead Nebula I like because first it's just gas that, from our point of view, looks like a horse's head. That's why we call it a Horsehead Nebula. I like it because it's a symbol of the tractability of the lexicon that pervades my field. Okay? If we see spots on the sun, they're officially called...
Sunspots?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Big red stars, they call them red giants.
Yeah.
Small white dwarfs.
Yeah.
Regions of space, you go in, you fall, you can't come out, light doesn't go, black hole.
Yeah.
Origin of space, time, the universe, and everything, Big Bang. These are official words.
Right.
Okay? So the universe is complex enough. We don't want a lexicon creating a smokescreen between you, who wants to come in, and the ideas that actually matter. This is really different from my colleagues in chemistry or biology, especially geology, where they come up
Those
with the
jerks.
biggest names ever
Yeah.
for thing. And, you know, I pick, oh, it's a pretty rock. Oh, that's orthoclase feldspar. I don't want your rock anymore. You take it, okay? You know, the most important event in the universe, 2 syllables, Big Bang, most important molecule in life, has 9 syllables. And even they know they got abbreviated into 3, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. So when they complain that not enough people like what they do, I just tell them, throw out all your vocabulary, put in stuff that is sensible to somebody who's trying to learn it. And then maybe because think about it. Some of the most famous scientists we know, historically, they've been physicists and astrophysicists. They haven't been scientists in these other fields. And I just wonder why. Those other fields are bigger than my field. So why is that the case? It's because as was it Yogi Berra said, call it like we see it.
Yeah.
You know. So Horsehead Nebula. It looks like a horse's head. That's my long counting for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Neil, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. The book is called Welcome to the Universe, out in bookstores now, and I imagine in digital version as well.
There's a Kindle. There's a Kindle version. Yeah.
I imagine you have many things, other projects going on, other books. Anything else you want to plug right now? The universe.
Yeah, I tweeted a few weeks ago, might have been my shortest tweet ever. I just said, let's make America smart again. And then it kind of went viral. Just having fun, you know. And there were times when I think America was smart. I mean, where we valued what it was to know something and to seek and find objective truths and base policy on it. That's always a stronger posture to be in a pluralistic country. So I think we can get back to that. And part of it is education. What is knowledge to you? And is science literacy knowing something, or is science literacy how you're wired to ask questions? And I think since we all spend many more years outside of school than in school, if the last day of school, your first thought is, great, no more school, we have failed. That's a failure. That the system has failed you. If instead you say, oh, now I got to go in the real world, but I am as curious as I've ever been, and there's so much more to learn, and I'll remain a lifelong learner, even though this is the last time I step down from the classroom. That's what tomorrow's educational system, I think, should foster for the greater good of our country, even civilization, let alone Earth, the planet.
Oh, it's a wonderful sentiment to end up on. Neil, thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to leave a quick program note. We'll be off for the holidays, but back on Tuesday, December 6th at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern with our guest, Rob Lloyd, the CEO of Hyperloop One. He's going to talk about some of the transportation projects that he has going on. If this is the first time you're seeing the show, give us a like, give us a share. We really appreciate those. And check out some of our past interviews. We've done a lot of cool ones. So thanks to everyone who participated. Thanks to Neil. Thanks to Social Pete. Thanks to the peanut gallery over here. And as always, Cambot, we got to end on this. Be good to each other. Peace.
Wait.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Do you say? Oh, thank you. Do you say?